Hello and welcome to News in Depth here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Donald Trump's push to extend US influence over Greenland has reignited debate over the Northern Sea Route, an Arctic shortcut linking Asia and Europe. We're joined by Matthew Day, he's senior online editor at TVP World, to examine the strategic, economic and environmental realities behind the Arctic question. Matthew, welcome to TVP World. Thanks for taking time.
Very happy to be back.
So, World Economic Forum at Davos finished today. Quite a consequential meeting, unlike most of its predecessors. What were your main takeaways?
Well, I think to begin with, it exposed the kind of huge rift between the United States and NATO allies. Okay, that was sort of patched up to a wee extent by Donald Trump with stepping back from tariffs and maybe stepping back from threatening to invade Greenland. But you have this massive rift. That's one aspect. And also I think the whole forum demonstrated that it's the established liberal post-war order is really under threat. It just seems to be fragmenting, and you have different countries maybe trying to think about forming up into different alliances or different groups, instead of maybe you have NATO on one side and the rest of the world on the other, or something like that, or you have BRICS. But now it seems to have shattered and scattered, and how all these pieces are going to join themselves back together and in what shape they're going to join themselves together is going to be really fascinating to watch.
Indeed. Fragmentation, Greenland, and related, of course, to the Greenland issue, because Trump, has been saying consistently that it's necessary for the security of the United States. And there he was talking about the Northern Sea Route in part. Ursula von der Leyen has a quote on that in particular. That should be coming up.
We have collectively underinvested in the Arctic and Arctic security, so now it's high time to step up and to build on what we already achieved. Beyond investment, we also intend to deepen cooperation with the United States and all partners on the important topic of Arctic security. In particular, we believe we should use our defense spending surge on Arctic-ready equipment, a European icebreaker, for example, and we should strengthen our security and defense arrangement with partners in the region.
OK, so she's also talking about security in the Arctic. Is that connected to Trump's Greenland argument? And what are the implications behind what she's just said?
Well, the Arctic is becoming an area of focus right now, because you have global warming, melting sea ice. That opens up the whole of the Arctic Ocean to commercial traffic, naval traffic as well. Of course, there are also maybe minerals and oil to be exploited within the Arctic region as well. So that's sort of initiated a race to get at these oil, minerals, and also B, growing security awareness, like we have to move military assets into this area once the ice has disappeared. And also, it's going to be an economic zone. It's like you're going to have, quite possibly, maybe, you will have ships going across the Northwest Passage over Canada, maybe one day. And also you have the Northern Sea Route, which comes all the way, where ships could come all the way from Asia, across the north of Russia and down into the North Atlantic.
Right, so a number of issues related to that. Let's start with the economic ones. So much shorter routes between Asia and Europe and the United States. What does that mean in terms of global trade, economic trade, and how soon can we expect that to start happening?
Well, if we take the Northern Sea Route, which goes the top of Russia, if you take a ship along that route, you can slash shipping times by half. For example, a ship going from Shanghai to Hamburg in Germany, if it goes via the Suez Canal, it can take up to 35 days. If it goes via the Northern Sea Route, it can be 19 days. And that's that's like half, essentially. And so that's really, really attractive for countries, particularly Russia and China.
So why aren't they doing it already?
Well, the reason that, actually Chinese boats are doing that. Not many, because the window to sail that northern sea route. Even now, it's still very narrow. It's quite in the summer months, early autumn, and you have to use special vessels with reinforced hulls, with reinforced superstructures, so that if they get caught in the ice, they don't sink. That is what is happening now. Now, people are saying, well, this will change as the ice diminishes, then it could become a proper commercial route. But there are big question marks over the viability of the route as it stands and also into the near future.
Right. What are those issues?
Well, you have a number of them. For example, people are saying, OK, it's going to be ice-free, but actually it's not. You're still going to have ice, even if global warming persists for quite some time. And this would be like floating ice, and these little ice flows, they can shift, they can move
So
around.
we'll need investments in icebreakers and so on to get these ships through.
It would do, and it would also maybe require all vessels to be ice class, which is a special type of ship. You have that issue, so you'll still have ice. The actual sea, the Arctic Ocean, is very difficult to navigate with or without ice. You have islands, you have very narrow straits, you have shallow straits as well, you have storms, you have fog. It's not a nice place to be if you're a mariner.
Right.
And on top of all that, you have this environmental concern as well. I think if you go from the Bering Strait to Murmansk,
which is the bit between
Alaska and
Russia, yes.
To the Russian port of Murmansk, which I think is in the north, up in the northwest of Russia, it's 4,000 kilometres. And that 4,000 kilometres of coastline, there's nothing. It's tundra, essentially. And so if a ship hits ice and is whole, say it's an oil tanker, that oil is just going to wreak havoc on a pristine environment. And another problem is that ice in cold waters doesn't degrade. I was talking to an expert today, and she was saying it can degrade, but it takes up to 10 years.
So the ice would just be floating around in the Arctic?
Just be floating around, and it could just wipe out huge areas of what is one of the world's last sort of pristine environments. And that is one reason why lots of the major world shipping companies, they don't go down the Northern Sea route, and they have no intention to go down the Northern Sea route. So at the moment it's being hyped up, but I think a lot of the hype is coming from Russia, it's coming from China. Russia is a fundamental asset for them. They really want to promote it because it's a way of making money. But despite that, it's not going to be used by Western shipping companies in the near future.
So although on paper it looks like a good idea, environmentally and economically, not quite yet.
Exactly.
Not ready for it. OK, I'd like to move on to another topic that was discussed at Davos, and that is the topic of the Board of Peace. Now, this was a proposal put forward by Donald Trump, inviting over 60 countries to join this board, which was intended really to bring peace to the world. Initially, to bring peace to Gaza, but he's extended its remit. Take-up hasn't been particularly strong. Talk us through why that is.
I think various countries have various reasons to stay out. Like the UK has cited concerns that Russia might be involved, so they don't want to be involved in a board of peace with Russia, which is currently waging war on a European country. Lots of other European countries, I think, have the same reservation. Other countries may feel that it's going to go nowhere, it doesn't mean anything. Or it's just going to be centred around Trump, and that's the point of it. There's like it's a Trump body, and Trump can lord over it, and other countries may just sort of kind of doff their caps to him, and it serves no practical purpose. Bear in mind, like its actual purpose, it was about Gaza, it was to try and bring peace to Gaza, but now it seems to be morphing into some kind of larger. I think a British Foreign Office official described it as a monster.
A monster.
And, yeah.
Undermining the United Nations.
Undermining the United Nations, undermining the established ways of doing diplomacy.
Right.
But, of course, Trump is very scornful about these established ways.
Right. OK, well, now I'd like to focus on a couple of countries that haven't actually signed up. Let's start with Poland. Now, we have a bit of a dilemma in Poland, don't we? Because President Nawrocki seems to be a favourite of President Trump's, and yet it doesn't seem to be in any great rush to sign up. Talk us through what that dynamic is.
Well, this dynamic is actually quite helpful to Poland at the moment, because the president, yes, he can say he has a good rapport with Donald Trump, so he can say, yes, I like the idea, but his hands are tied in a way by the government, because I think the Polish parliament has to approve the president's signature on the border peace. So he can say, Donald, yeah, I want to do it, but I can't. And the government can say, which has a far more sceptical attitude towards this initiative, it can say to the Europeans, saying, look, we are concentrating on trying to establish peace in Europe. We want to strengthen European security. We don't want to be sidetracked by the border peace.
Right.
So this dichotomy has been a problem for Poland in the past, but at the moment this is quite handy.
Are they playing good cop, bad cop, with Nawrocki being the good cop with Trump? And
unintentionally.
Unintentionally, because Prime Minister Tusk is saying, well, we need permission from Parliament, and also, I suppose, the Polish population isn't going to take it terribly well. Now, there is another country that isn't signing up, that I'd like your view on. I think we have a soundbite from Trump talking about that.
We get along very well with NATO, I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever need them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We have never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They said a little back, little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries.
Right, now that, unsurprisingly, ruffled many feathers amongst NATO states. Let's start with the United Kingdom. They lost about 400 soldiers in Afghanistan, answering the call after 9/11. How have they responded to what we just heard?
Well, the British government, or various British governments, they are quite familiar with Trump's various digs at NATO. He's quite scornful of it from time to time. He's sceptical about it. But this one has, shall we say, it's crossed a bit of a line in Britain now. It's been following the British press today, and people have just gone ballistic about it. It's just such a disrespectful thing to say. Keir Starmer, he's accused Trump of diminishing Britain's war dead. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, the British opposition party, she waded in, calling it disgraceful and absolutely appalling, and which is indicative of just how
well, having the Conservatives and Labour actually aligning on something is unusual in itself, isn't
it? I was going through the comments section in the British newspaper, The Telegraph, now, which is right-wing. Normally, the comment section, you get quite a lot of supporters of Trump chiming in, saying, "Oh yeah, you know, he shouldn't be. He's not too bad," or maybe this is, or he's saying that this is what the kind of leader Britain needs. And you don't find any of that. There is just uniform.
So he's lost the support of right-wing parties in Britain.
I wouldn't say he's lost the support of right-wing parties, but I think what he has done with these comments, he has made life very difficult for right-wing parties, or more kind of fringe right-wing parties, to maintain their support levels. And I think that's not just true about the UK, but also applies to Europe as a whole. These are parties that have always been very proud to be, say, British, whatever. They wrap themselves in the Union Jack, if we're talking about the UK, and they love our armed forces. So for the US president to come along to sort of question like the bravery, the commitment of the armed forces is appalling to them. And they will find, for the leaders of these parties, they will find it very hard to square their support for Trump with the backlash and the anger that is currently resonating around their supporters.
Around supporters both in the UK and other NATO countries. What do you think? What effect do you think this is going to have on again, you know, how much countries can rely on the United States when it comes to the NATO context?
Well, coming after the whole Greenland scandal, it's another. It's going to add more weight to the already tense situation between the United States and NATO countries. I should also add that, by the way, that Kosiniak-Kamysz, the Polish defence minister, he accused Trump of. He said that the sacrifices of the Polish army must not be diminished when it comes to the Poles who died in Afghanistan and Iraq. So it's going to add more to the tension, and it's also going to make life a lot harder for, say, the British government and the Polish government, going back to it in a way what we were talking about a moment ago, about how they handle Trump. They need Trump on side when it comes to defence still, that they still have to placate him in a way. But
not at any price.
But not at any price, but they're going to have to start getting their calculator out now and trying to work out what that price is, because these comments are going to make life very, very difficult for them, because all things come. There's going to be a breaking point. There's going to be a point when we say we can't go on like this.
Right.
And so these governments are going to have, their life is going to get harder and harder, trying to maintain relationship with Trump, but at the same time trying to stand up for not only their country's interests, their European interests, but also principles of right and wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I first heard of this, I thought, is this simply a reflection of the Trump negotiating style? You know, with Greenland, he started off with a maximalist demand and then backed down. Was this his equivalent when it came to NATO? Do you think that argument might work, or not really?
It can work, maybe. Like, people do say, okay. Trump says this, and it's part of a game he plays. He kind of shocks everybody, and they're shocked into making concessions. So they question the tactic, but the results they approve of, as critics. But if you carry on playing this game, you're just going to undermine support for the United States. You're going to undermine trust within the United States. And the United States is not an island. It requires the support of its allies. The Shadow Fleet tanker that was seized in the Atlantic, was it last month? I can't remember. It was it was coordinated with the UK. The Americans could not have seized that tanker without British support. You have American air bases in southern Europe. They can fly combat missions to the Middle East. If push comes to shove,
there are
United
levers.
States can lose a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think President Trump would do well to remember that. Matthew, thank you very much indeed.
Happy to be
for
here.
Sharing your analysis with our audience. And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.